Hey guys, tonight we're stepping quietly into the hidden, candlelit corners of medieval life, the parts the history books like to skim over. Imagine the damp stone streets, the wooden homes creaking in the wind, the heavy smell of smoke, livestock, and, yeah, probably things you don't want to think about right before bed. But most of all, imagine living here not as a noble or a knight, not even as a wife, but as a single woman, completely on your own. Trust me, you probably wouldn't survive this for long. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Always love seeing how far this sleepy little history corner reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down the muddy lane, the soles of your leather shoes thin and cracking from weeks of wear. The village isn't much to look at, just a huddle of timber-framed homes with thatched roofs slouching under their own weight, crooked chimneys coughing smoke into the gray sky. It's early morning, but the streets are already awake. Dogs bark. A cart rattles past, its wooden wheels groaning. Somewhere, a blacksmith's hammer rings out like a warning bell. And you? You walk alone. Being single in the medieval world isn't exactly a choice you flaunt. Marriage is the expectation, the standard, the quiet contract that shields, or cages, most women. But here you are. Maybe your parents couldn't afford a dowry. Maybe you refused a marriage that made your skin crawl. Or maybe fate, or the plague, left you with no family at all. Whatever the reason, your single status follows you like a shadow. People notice. They always notice. A couple of men standing by the baker's door eye you as you pass, their whispers carried on the morning chill. You keep your head down. In a place like this, reputation is everything. A single woman living alone? It's enough to stir suspicion, pity, or worse. Historians still argue whether women like you were pitied, resented, or quietly respected. The truth is probably tangled somewhere in between. Your home, if you can call it that, crouches at the village's edge, a single room of wattle and daub, patched where the winter winds clawed at the walls. Inside, it smells faintly of smoke and herbs. Your bed is a straw mattress tucked against the wall, your only luxury a roughly carved wooden chest that holds your threadbare belongings. You didn't always live alone. You remember bustling kitchens, sisters giggling as they scrubbed floors, the heavy footsteps of your father. But now, their laughter is gone, replaced by creaking floorboards and the hum of your own breathing. The village isn't entirely unkind. Old Maud, the midwife, slips you bits of bread or herbs when she can. The blacksmith's wife once offered you a worn cloak for winter. But kindness comes with caution. People help, but they watch. Always watching. See, in a world where marriage defines a woman's place, being outside that system makes you unpredictable. Dangerous, even. A dog darts across the lane, chasing a chicken, and you sidestep just in time, your heart skipping. You shake your head. Life is hard enough without feathered hazards. And still, as ridiculous as it sounds, that stray chicken has more freedom than you. It scurries where it pleases. You? Every step is measured, every glance dissected. It's not all grim, though. You've learned skills, practical, stubborn ones that carve out a living. Spinning wool, patching clothes, brewing weak ale for the villagers who trust you not to poison them. It's not much, but it keeps your belly half full and the worst of the cold at bay. Once, you considered leaving. Following the merchant caravans to the next town, disappearing into the smoky haze of some bustling city where no one knows your name. But it's a dangerous dream. The roads are treacherous. Bandits, wolves, worse. And besides, a single woman traveling alone? It practically invites disaster. You pass the churchyard now, its gravestones tilting like weary sentinels. The church looms ahead, gray and cold, its spire scratching the low sky. The priest, Father Aldrich, emerges, his robes trailing in the breeze. His eyes catch yours for a moment, curious, measuring, but he says nothing. The church may preach compassion, but it's also the village's moral compass. And you, living outside the tidy lines of marriage and family, sit awkwardly on its edges. It's strange, isn't it? How quiet rebellion looks so small. No flaming torches, no grand speeches. Just the simple defiance of existing, unmarried, unclaimed, in a world that expects otherwise. A group of village women pass by, baskets of laundry balanced on their hips. One nods to you, her expression unreadable. Another whispers behind her hand. You're used to it. Still, there are moments, brief, fragile ones, where being single feels like freedom. You wake when you choose. You mend your clothes with crooked stitches only you have to endure. You sit by the fire, alone with your thoughts, the quiet crackle your only company. There's no husband to obey, no children to wrangle, no in-laws scrutinizing your every move. But there's danger too. Without a man to vouch for you, protect you, or, let's be honest, control you, you walk a tightrope. One slip, one accusation, and life can spiral fast. People love a scandal, and a woman without clear ties. You're an easy target. You pause at the market square's edge, watching as villagers haggle over turnips, wool, and salted fish. The air buzzes with chatter, clinking coins, and the sharp scent of smoke and livestock. Your stomach growls quietly, reminding you that survival isn't poetic, it's practical. You'll need to trade, smile politely, dodge the leering glances, and somehow, keep your reputation intact. As you step forward, adjusting your faded cloak, you can't help but wonder, how many other women, hidden behind shutters and worn doors, are living this same quiet rebellion. Alone, resilient, and walking the narrow path society grudgingly allows. The morning market hums around you as you weave through the crowd, basket hooked over your arm, ears tuned to the rhythm of whispers. It's not just produce and cloth being traded here, gossip is the real currency, and your name? It drifts among the murmurs like smoke. Reputation, for a single woman in this little medieval village, is both shield and noose. You feel its weight every time someone glances your way, every time their voices dip as you pass. Your virtue, your behavior, even the way your cloak falls around your shoulders, it all matters. It's frustrating, honestly. The men can stumble out of the tavern reeking of ale, slurring their prayers at mass the next day, and still be considered respectable. But you? One wrong look, one stray rumor, and suddenly, you're a cautionary tale. Historians still argue whether unmarried women were seen as tragic, dangerous, or simply invisible. The truth, as you've come to know it, shifts depending on who's doing the whispering. At the bread stall, you hand over a few coins for a small, hard loaf. The baker's wife, stout and watchful, offers you a thin smile. It doesn't reach her eyes. You know she's heard the rumors, that you keep to yourself, that you walk the woods at odd hours, that no suitor has claimed you. It's enough to raise eyebrows. You tug your cloak tighter as you move on, past the fishmonger and the cobbler, through the maze of stalls and judgment. The market square is where reputations grow, or wither. A girl your age passes by, arm in arm with her new husband. Her cheeks are flushed, her eyes bright. She's still in that early stage of marriage, where the hard labor hasn't dulled her yet, and her husband's expectations haven't fully pressed down on her shoulders. You wonder, just for a heartbeat, what that life would feel like. But then you remember the quiet of your own home, the small freedoms you guard like treasures, and the thought drifts away. Not every single woman ends up alone by choice. You know that. Some were promised in marriage, only to have the groom die, or change his mind. Others, like yourself, slipped through the cracks of dowries and family negotiations. And a few, those rare, whispered about few, chose this life on purpose. But even for those women, virtue is a balancing act. You pass by the well, the center of more than just water gathering. It's the pulse of the village's social web. The women clustered their glance at you. One, a wrinkled matron with sharp eyes, offers a nod. Another, younger, lets her gaze linger a moment too long. You can practically hear her thinking, alone. Unmarried. How does she manage? The answer? Carefully. Always carefully. In this world, virtue is like delicate glass. Once cracked, through rumors, through appearance, through the simple fact of your unmarried status, it never quite repairs. And for women like you, there's little margin for error. A gust of wind tugs at your cloak as you slip down a side street, away from the market's hum. The narrow lane is quieter, lined with homes leaning together like gossiping neighbors. You glance at the windows, half expecting to catch someone peeking out. It wasn't always this way, you remind yourself. A century ago, in some parts of Europe, unmarried women could hold positions of surprising independence. In cities like Paris or London, widows and single women sometimes ran shops, took apprentices, even owned property. But here, in your little patch of muddy ground and timber, the rules feel older. Tighter. There's a reason you walk with your head high, cloak fastened neatly, expression calm. You're not just guarding your dignity, you're reinforcing it, brick by quiet brick. Still, no amount of careful steps can entirely silence the gossip. You pause at the home of old Maud, the midwife. Her door hangs slightly ajar, herbs drying from the lintel. She's seen the village turn on women before, those whose reputations cracked too far to repair. You've helped her with chores now and then, grateful for her sharp advice, even sharper wit. Maud once told you, over a steaming pot of stew, that a woman's reputation is like a hedge of thorns. It keeps danger out, but also keeps you trapped inside. She should know. As a widow and midwife, she walks her own narrow line between respect and suspicion. Mind your step, she warned you, eyes twinkling. Smile enough to calm them, but never enough to make them jealous. It was good advice. You've clung to it like a charm. But sometimes, charm and careful walking aren't enough. You've seen it happen, the girl branded loose for accepting too many glances at the tavern, the older woman whispered to be a witch simply because she preferred solitude. You've heard the cruel giggles, the hissing prayers. Historians still debate whether those social punishments kept order, or simply controlled women. You have your own opinion, formed by daily survival. Back on the main road, you catch sight of a boy chasing a stray dog, his laughter echoing down the lane. It's a reminder that not all eyes watching you are judging ones. Some, like his, are innocent still. But that won't last. Even young girls in the village learn early, their value measured by marriage prospects, their behavior scrutinized like goods at the market. And you? You're the cautionary tale, the one their mothers point to when they speak of what happens if you don't marry, if you live alone, if your virtue is questioned. It's maddening. But it's also oddly freeing, sometimes. The low expectations, the dismissive glances, they carve out quiet spaces where you can simply exist, away from the heavy gaze of husbands and fathers. You reach your doorstep again as the sun climbs higher, filtering weakly through clouds. Your small home waits, humble and creaking. You slip inside, setting down your meager market hall. The room smells faintly of herbs and smoke, familiar and private. Outside, the village hums, the market bustles, the whispers swirl. But in here? For a moment, you breathe freely. Being a single woman in the medieval world means carrying your reputation like a fragile shield, always visible, always vulnerable. But within your four walls, the weight eases, if only a little. You lean against the door, listening to the faint chatter beyond, and wonder, not for the first time, what tomorrow's whispers will say about you. You wake before the sun most days, your small home still cloaked in darkness, the faint smell of last night's smoke lingering in the air. It's not comfort that pulls you from bed, it's survival. You have to earn your keep, and as a single woman in this medieval village, no one's going to hand you coin out of pity. Earning a living isn't just difficult, it's a quiet rebellion. You tie your worn cloak around your shoulders, fingers stiff from the morning chill, and glance over the small collection of tools and goods you've gathered over the years. A spindle and distaff for spinning wool. A small pot for brewing ale or steeping herbs. Scraps of linen for mending. Each item is more than a possession, it's a lifeline. Spinning is your most reliable trade. The village always needs thread, and while your work won't win you praise, it keeps bread on your table. The wool is coarse, rough against your fingers, but as the spindle twists, you fall into a rhythm, the thread building slowly, like your reputation. Quiet. Steady. Delicate. Historians still argue whether women like you truly had autonomy through work, or if it was simply tolerated because the village needed you. Either way, you cling to it. But spinning isn't your only skill. You've learned to brew ale, a weak, everyday kind the villagers drink because the water's often worse than the beer. It's an art that walks a dangerous line. Brew well, and you're useful. Brew poorly, or worse, make someone sick, and the same villagers who bought your ale will be first to whisper that you're cursed. You remember Agnes, a woman not much older than you, who tried brewing in secret. Her ale soured, a child took ill, and within days, her home was ransacked by angry villagers, her name spat like poison. She left soon after. Or vanished, depending on which version of the story you believe. That's the thing about independence here, it attracts suspicion. The men in the guilds sneer at women earning coin without oversight. The church preaches modesty, obedience. And the village gossips? They love a single woman who stirs the pot, literally and figuratively. You step outside, basket hooked over your arm. The morning air is sharper now, promising autumn's approach. You head toward the commons, where other women gather to spin, mend, and trade. It's a necessary alliance, even if not all of them welcome you. On the way, you pass the midwife's cottage again. Old Maud once told you that single women like you have two choices: become invisible, or become indispensable. You've chosen the latter. Slowly, carefully. Your spinning earns enough to barter for food. Brewing keeps your hearth warm. And on occasion, you help gather herbs for Maud, careful never to be seen alone too long in the woods. That's how the witch rumors start. There's something almost comforting about the repetition of it all. Your hands twist wool into thread, your eyes scan for customers or bartering opportunities, your ears stay alert to the latest whispers. It's a constant performance, a blend of competence and just enough humility to avoid envy. As you settle among the women in the commons, the familiar chatter surrounds you. Some speak of husbands and children. Others, like Greta the baker's sister, speak of hopes for marriage, for someone to claim them and lift them into respectability. And then there's you, claimed by no one, respected by few, watched by all. A young boy runs past, chasing a dog with a stick. The village priest passes by shortly after, offering a curt nod. His eyes linger, as they always do, measuring, judging. You know your place in his sermons, a cautionary footnote, a quiet reminder to the married women of how society expects them to behave. But what they often forget, what even the priest overlooks, is that your independence, precarious as it is, grants you something most women can't touch: control over your own time, your own earnings, your own space. It's not much. But it's yours. There's a fringe tale the older women whisper, one you overheard as a girl, of women called beguines in far-off cities. Single, often devout, they lived together, worked, prayed, and earned without marrying or becoming nuns. It sounds almost like freedom. But that's the city. Here, in your small patch of muddy earth, the options are fewer, the scrutiny sharper. You trade your spun wool for bread, accept a small pouch of herbs from Maud in return for helping her mend a garment. Coins are scarce, but bartering keeps you afloat. Still, it's a tightrope. One bad batch of ale. One rumor you lingered in the woods too long. One village child falling ill after eating bread near your home. And suddenly, your independence turns from quiet rebellion to a mark of danger. Historians still argue whether medieval women like you could truly craft their own livelihoods, or whether it was all just tolerated charity wrapped in necessity. But in the rhythm of your spinning, in the quiet clink of bartered goods, you feel the edges of your own power. The sun is higher now, casting thin, watery light over the commons. The other women rise, returning to homes, husbands, chores. You linger a moment longer, savoring the rare feeling of usefulness without interference. Your steps back to your cottage are steady. Your small home waits, a patchy roof, a smoky hearth, a bed that sags, but it's yours. Earning a living as a single woman here isn't just labor. It's strategy. It's survival. And beneath the quiet weaving of wool and herbs and ale, it's resistance. The village may whisper, the priest may watch. But tonight, your fire will burn, your bread will bake, and your thread will twist stronger still. And as you shut the door against the cooling evening, you smile, just a little. They can keep their whispers. You have work to do. The moon hangs heavy and low as you slip quietly from your bed, the faint creak of floorboards masked by the soft crackle of the hearth's dying embers. Tonight isn't for spinning or brewing or bartering. Tonight, you walk the unseen paths, the quiet network of single women like yourself, threading their way through the shadows of this medieval village. It's not exactly a secret society, but close enough. See, for all the rules and expectations pressing down on unmarried women, there exists an unspoken understanding. A loose, whispery web of alliances, favors, and quiet exchanges that helps you all survive. You learned this early, watching the older single women, widows, spinsters, lone mothers, navigate life with practiced subtlety. Historians still argue whether these networks were formal, structured support groups or simply the natural byproduct of shared struggle. From where you stand, barefoot on the cool floor, you know, it doesn't really matter. They exist. They keep you afloat. You pull your cloak tight and ease out the door. The village sleeps, save for the occasional flicker of candlelight behind shuttered windows or the distant bark of a restless dog. The night air bites, but it carries the comforting scent of earth and wood smoke. You head toward Ellen's home first. Ellen's what the gossips call a confirmed spinster, though never to her face. Middle-aged, sharp-eyed, and unbothered by marriage talk, she's been living alone longer than you've been alive. Runs her weaving loom like a queen commands her court. Keeps to herself, but every unmarried woman in the village knows, if you need quiet advice, a place to hide, or news, you go to Ellen. Her candle burns low in the window, a small signal. You tap lightly on the door, and it opens without a word. Inside, the air is warm, thick with the smell of wool and faint lavender. Ellen doesn't bother with pleasantries. Instead, she hands you a wrapped bundle, a spool of better quality wool, some dried herbs from her garden. Bartered goods, traded quietly, outside the prying eyes of husbands and churchmen. Greta needs thread, Ellen says simply. And I heard Maud's looking for pennyroyal. It's not just commerce, it's connection. A quiet, mutually protective web that helps keep single women fed, clothed, and slightly ahead of disaster. You slip the bundle into your basket, offer a soft thank you, and head back into the night. Further along, you pass Marta's cottage. Widow for 10 years, 3 children to raise, no husband to shield her. The village pities her just enough to keep their whispers at bay, but not so much that they help her outright. That's where women like you come in. A loaf of bread here, an extra skein of wool there, a whispered warning when the priest starts sniffing around 4 wayward souls. It's not charity, it's survival, wrapped in community. It's odd, really. For all the suspicion heaped upon single women, you're often the quiet glue holding the village together. Unmarried, childless, yet nursing the sick when the midwife can't. Brewing the ale when the men botch the process. Mending clothes, spinning wool, tending herbs. Of course, no one says it aloud. That might imply respect, and respect for an unmarried woman? That's dangerous territory. Historians still argue whether these quiet support networks were tolerated, resented, or simply ignored by the men in charge. You suspect the answer is, all 3. The church prefers women married or veiled in religious life. The village needs you but distrusts your independence. And you? You just keep weaving your quiet alliances, stitch by careful stitch. You make your last stop by the edge of the woods, where Maud's garden spills beyond her fenced yard. She meets you in the shadows, gray hair wild in the moonlight, eyes sharp as ever. "Pennyroyal," she mutters, pressing a small bundle into your hand. "For tea. Or, other uses." You know the other uses. Pennyroyal for unwanted pregnancies, willow bark for pain, herbs whispered about in kitchens and hidden behind hedgerows. It's knowledge passed between women, unrecorded by scholars, unwritten by monks, but vital all the same. "Careful with that," Maud adds. "The priest's been sniffing round again." You nod, slipping the bundle into your cloak. It's not just herbs you carry, it's quiet power. The kind that doesn't wear a crown or wield a sword but keeps women alive, protected, maybe even slightly free. The walk back to your cottage is slower. The moon glides through thin clouds, casting silver across the rooftops. Your feet know the paths now, every stone and rut memorized. As you pass the well, you pause. The village sleeps, but the weight of its expectations hums even here. Single women, alone, weaving through the shadows, it unsettles them. Makes them wonder what you're plotting, what you're hiding. Truth is, you're hiding nothing more sinister than resilience. The quiet women's web, the shared bundles, whispered advice, hidden herbs, isn't rebellion. Not exactly. It's survival. It's sisterhood, in the loosest, sleepiest, most practical sense. The door to your home creaks faintly as you slip inside. You set down the herbs, unwrap the wool, tend the dying fire. The faint scent of pennyroyal rises, sharp and green, mingling with wood smoke. You stretch, fatigue settling into your bones, but there's a comfort in knowing you're not entirely alone. Your network, unseen, unspoken, thrives in the quiet. Keeps you afloat. Tomorrow, the village will wake, the gossips will stir, the priest will preach, and the weight of expectation will settle heavy once more. But tonight? Tonight, the single women walk their quiet paths. Trade their quiet goods. Weave their quiet threads of survival. And you? You close your eyes, curl beneath your blankets, and drift off, tired, weary, but never entirely alone. You wake to the hollow clang of the church bell, echoing over damp rooftops and muddy lanes. The sound rolls across the village like a reminder, of faith, of duty, of eyes always watching. It's Sunday. Which means Mass. Which means, for you, a carefully measured performance. See, being single in a medieval village isn't just a lifestyle. It's a tightrope act, especially when it comes to religion. You can skip the occasional market day. You can even avoid the rowdy feast nights. But Mass? You show up, or people talk. You pull on your best, well, your least patched, cloak and head out into the cool morning. The church squats in the village center, a gray, weathered structure of stone and timber, its spire reaching like a bony finger into the sky. The bells stop as you join the stream of villagers filing through the arched doorway. Inside, the air is thick with the mingled scents of smoke, candle wax, and damp wool. You find your usual place, off to the side, near the back, not quite hidden but not exactly front and center. Other single women cluster nearby, widows, spinsters, girls not yet married. You recognize their faces, their careful expressions. You all know the drill. The priest begins his sermon, voice droning through the chilly space. The words slip over you: sin, virtue, temptation, the usual reminders. But you're listening for more than scripture. You're listening for the subtext. Single women, after all, make easy examples. You've heard it before, the veiled warnings about Eve's curiosity, Delilah's deception, Mary Magdalene's redemption, but always with the same undercurrent: alone, a woman is dangerous. Untethered. In need of guidance. Historians still argue whether the Church truly believed unmarried women were a moral threat, or if it was simply convenient to keep you in your place. Either way, the message is clear. The priest's gaze drifts over your group. It lingers for a beat too long on you, before moving on. A small, practiced smile curls at your lips. You've survived worse scrutiny. After the sermon, the villagers file out, chattering softly. Some glance your way, curious, cautious. You nod politely, keeping your expression mild, neutral, unthreatening. Outside, the sunlight is weak, filtered through drifting clouds. You breathe deeply, savoring the cool air after the oppressive hush of the church. Your steps take you toward the churchyard, where gravestones lean at odd angles and moss creeps along the stone walls. Here, away from the crowds, you let your shoulders relax. Religion shapes every part of life here: birth, marriage, death, and everything in between. For married women, it means confession, obedience, and prayers for their husbands. For the wealthy, it means power disguised as piety. For you, it's a balancing act. Attend Mass. Avoid suspicion. Keep your independence tucked quietly behind folded hands and bowed head. You wander among the gravestones, fingers trailing over the worn carvings. So many names. So many forgotten women, their identities reduced to wife of or daughter of. A quiet, somber reminder of what happens when you're folded into someone else's legacy. You pause by one stone, the name half erased by weather. No wife of. No daughter of. Just a name, Alice. The villagers say she was a healer, or maybe a midwife, or maybe something darker. The details change with each telling, but the whispers never fully fade. You wonder if she, too, walked the line between suspicion and usefulness. Further along, you spot Maud, the midwife, hunched over a small herb plot just outside the churchyard fence. You join her, careful to keep your expression appropriately somber for post-Mass conversation. Watched you during the sermon, Maud mutters without looking up. Our good priest's got his eye on you. You shrug lightly. Doesn't he always? Maud snorts. Aye, but the way things are, best keep your head down. Folks talk. They always do. About you. About Maud. About any woman who doesn't neatly fit the roles handed out like bread rations. Still, it's not all suspicion. Religion, for all its rules and warnings, weaves through the village in more complicated ways. The church hosts feast days, distributes alms, tends to the sick. And for women like you, sometimes it offers options. Take the convents. Not that you plan to vanish behind cloistered walls anytime soon, but they exist. Places where single women can carve out lives as nuns, scholars, even modest power brokers, so long as they trade the outside world for scripture and silence. Historians still argue whether convent life was liberation or just another gilded cage. But for some women, it was the only route to autonomy with society's reluctant blessing. You shake the thought away. Convent walls might suit others, but your path lies here, among muddy lanes and whispered alliances. The church bells toll again, signaling the end of Mass. The villagers scatter, some to fields, others to hearths and market stalls. You drift back toward your cottage, the weight of the morning lifting slightly with each step. Your mind turns over the usual worries, coin, herbs, brewing, but beneath it all hums a quiet defiance. They can preach, they can warn, they can side-eye you through sermons and social gatherings. But you've learned the art of blending in just enough. Back home, you peel off your cloak, hang it by the hearth, and stoke the coals. The room warms slowly, the fire crackling to life. Religion will always thread through your days, a steady, insistent presence. But between the rituals and rosaries, you've carved a space of your own. Small, precarious, fiercely protected. The priest can watch. The villagers can whisper. You'll spin your wool, brew your ale, walk the line with practiced ease. And when the bells toll again tomorrow, you'll rise, head high, shoulders steady. The single woman at Mass. Alone. Unmarried. Entirely unrepentant. You wake to the clatter of hooves on muddy ground and the low hum of voices outside your window. Market day. The village square will swell with noise, color, and the slightly sour tang of too many bodies in too small a space. For most, market day is a simple equation: bring goods, sell goods, go home. But for you, an unmarried woman navigating the medieval maze of expectations, it's another dance of quiet calculations. The cloak goes on. The basket over your arm. Coins tucked safely beneath your tunic. You step out into the cool morning, heart steady. Because today, you walk not just among merchants and farmers, but among whispers, judgments, and opportunities disguised as ordinary errands. The square teems with stalls and wagons. Bright bolts of cloth flutter like captured flags. Baskets of apples, wheels of hard cheese, rough-stitched tunics piled high. The smell of roasted meat mingles with damp earth and the sharp sting of tannery waste drifting in from the edge of town. You move through the crowd, eyes sharp beneath a carefully neutral smile. Around you, clusters of married women haggle over bread, men boast over livestock, children chase stray dogs. But it's the other single women you notice most. There's Marjorie, young and quick-tongued, working her uncle's stall of honey and beeswax candles. She grins when she sees you, her gaze flickering knowingly. She's got no husband, no dowry worth mentioning, but with her sharp tongue and bright smile, she carves her space in the crowd. Further along, Agnes weaves through the throng, basket laden with eggs. A widow twice over, with more spine than most men in this village. The gossips mutter about her bad luck, but no one dares overcharge her at the stalls. These women, like you, walk the market as a quiet defiance. No husband's coin. No brother's permission. Just careful trade, sharp senses, and the subtle currency of independence. Historians still argue whether women like you were truly accepted in these spaces, or merely tolerated as necessary cogs in the village economy. Standing here, among clucking chickens and hawking merchants, you suspect it's both. You approach Ellen's stall, the weaver, your quiet ally from the other night. Her woven goods lie in neat rows, homespun wool, sturdy linen, the occasional embroidered trim for those who can afford it. Busy day, you murmur, fingering a length of undyed wool. Ellen nods, eyes scanning the crowd. Watch for the Reeve. He's sniffing about. Checking weights. Fines for the careless. You nod. Another layer of the market game. The Reeve, the local official, loves little more than catching women short on taxes or goods improperly measured. Single women are easy targets. Fewer defenders. You keep your transactions neat. Fair coin for fair cloth. No excess, no debts. The trick isn't just surviving here, it's vanishing into the crowd when needed. Across the square, the spice seller from the nearby town shouts his prices. His goods, a handful of peppercorns, dried saffron threads, a pinch of cinnamon, cost more than most villagers earn in weeks. But they glitter with possibility. Spices aren't just for flavor, they're quiet power. A pinch of cloves to impress a wealthy guest. A sprinkle of cinnamon to mask the bitterness of cheap ale. Even whispered remedies, nutmeg for pain, pepper for illness, drift through the village on cautious lips. You can't afford saffron, but the idea lingers. Further along, the potter displays his wares, unglazed jugs, clay bowls, the occasional painted tile. You pause by the tiles, tracing your finger along the rough surface. Decorative, but also a rare window into the world beyond your muddy lanes. Some bear crude patterns, leaves, vines, the odd geometric swirl. Others depict animals, a hunting hound, a fish, even a lion. The lion always makes you smile. The nearest lion is probably 1,000 miles away, but here he is, snarling bravely on a cracked tile in your tiny corner of the world. A reminder that the world is vast. That beyond these stalls and suspicious glances lie places where single women walk freely, trade openly, even, whisper it, rule in their own right. Historians still argue whether women in other corners of the medieval world had more freedom than you do here. Merchant cities like Venice or the bustling markets of Cairo, there, perhaps, a woman's coin carried farther than her surname. But for now, the muddy lanes of your village are your kingdom. The market, your battlefield. You finish your errands, eggs for bread, wool for herbs, a handful of barley to stretch your winter stores. Along the way, you swap news with the other women. The Reeve find Marjorie for light candles, the priest warned against immodest gatherings, code for unmarried women chatting too freely, the miller's wife quietly selling honey on the side. It's not just commerce. It's connection. You linger by the well as the crowd thins. The sun breaks weakly through the clouds, casting the square in pale light. Your basket feels heavier with goods, your coin pouch lighter. But you walk home with more than trade tucked beneath your cloak. You carry the quiet understanding that, for women like you, the market isn't just survival. It's resistance, masked as routine. A space where sharp eyes and careful words buy not just food, but slivers of independence. The villagers may mutter. The Reeve may watch. The church may warn. But the market remains. Open. Crowded. Alive. And you? You'll be there. Among the sellers and buyers. Alone. Unmarried. Entirely in control. You stir the pot hanging over your hearth, the faint aroma of herbs curling through the small, smoky room. The concoction simmers quietly, but your mind isn't on dinner, it's on the other, less obvious brew bubbling away behind your eyes. Gossip. Quiet knowledge. The steady hum of village politics that never truly sleeps. Because here's the unspoken truth of medieval life, for single women like you, information is as valuable as coin, and far more dangerous to mishandle. Outside, the afternoon light fades into a gray haze. You slip on your cloak and step into the lane, boots crunching on straw and damp earth. The village hums with its usual rhythm, children darting between cottages, smoke rising in lazy curls, livestock lowing in their pens. But beneath that ordinary surface? The quiet, intricate dance of social currency. You make your way toward Maud's cottage, the midwife's place, tucked neatly at the village edge, where fewer ears lurk. Her door creaks open as you approach. "Come in, then," Maud mutters, ushering you inside. The space smells of herbs, wool, and old secrets. Bundles of dried lavender and rue hang from the rafters. A chipped wooden mortar sits on the table beside neatly arranged vials and pots. It's more than a healer's home, it's a crossroads for quiet dealings, whispered news, and the unspoken alliance of women who walk the edges of village life. "Trouble brewing?" you ask softly. Maud shrugs, slicing dried roots with careful precision. "When isn't there?" She means more than sickness or childbirth. She means the subtle web of favors, grudges, and alliances that stitch this place together, unseen by most men, but pulsing through the village like blood in the veins. You settle by the hearth, accepting a mug of weak ale. Across the flames, Maud speaks low, voice rough with age and pragmatism. "Folk say the Reeves got eyes on Agnes. Widow or not, she's been too bold at market." A pause. "And the priest, well, he's asking after you more than usual." You smile faintly. "He always does." Maud snorts. "But watch it. Single woman with her own coin, her own space. They'll call you witch before they call you wise." Historians still argue whether accusations of witchcraft were truly rampant in your time, or if later centuries twisted the numbers. But one thing is clear, the suspicion has always simmered beneath the surface, especially for women like you. Alone. Resourceful. Just a little too independent. You sip the ale, its sharp edge grounding you. The warnings aren't new. The village may run on bread and labor, but beneath that, it runs on careful reputation management. In the corner, Maud grinds herbs, her hands sure despite the tremor of age. You watch her work, the neat efficiency of one who's seen too much, whispered too many secrets, buried too many truths. It's no wonder they half fear her. Out the window, dusk creeps in. The village lane's empty, save for the occasional scurrying cat or late returning shepherd. You drain your mug and stand. "I'll be careful, you promise." Maud snorts again. "You're already too clever for them. That's the danger." Stepping outside, the cool air brushes your face, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and damp earth. The village feels different now, quieter, more brittle. Like the ordinary rules thin at dusk, making room for the whispers that fill the gaps. You walk the lanes, boots silent on packed dirt. Around you, Cottage windows glow faintly, shadows moving behind thin shutters. The air hums with quiet tension, the unsaid grievances, the tangled alliances, the fragile peace held together by habit and necessity. At the well, you pause. A pair of girls pass by, giggling softly. You catch fragments of their conversation: trouble at the mill, a neighbor's illness, speculation about a new merchant passing through. Even the youngest here learn early: information is currency, traded as easily as eggs or wool. You move on, slipping into your own cottage, bolting the door behind you. The hearth crackles low, casting soft light across the room. You settle by the fire, pulling your wool shawl tighter. This is the part they never warn you about: the constant quiet vigilance. For married women, life may be dictated by husbands, but for the single? It's dictated by perception. You can't afford to be careless. A misplaced word. A suspicious glance. Too much knowledge, spoken too freely. You remember Ellen's warning from market day. The reeve sniffing about. The priest's sidelong looks. It weaves together now, the steady narrowing of eyes when you pass, the questions cloaked in false concern. Historians still argue whether medieval women formed true support networks, or whether survival forced everyone into cautious rivalry. But sitting here, warmed by fire and fortified by Maud's words, you know the answer lies somewhere messy in between. There are alliances. Fragile, shifting, but real. Women like Maud, Ellen, Agnes. They trade more than goods. They trade knowledge. Defense. Quiet understanding. You stir the pot over the fire. The herbs bubble gently, releasing their scent. It's more than soup simmering there, it's your quiet defiance. Your reminder that knowledge, like heat, spreads quietly, reshaping the world in small, persistent ways. The village may watch. The priest may wonder. The reeve may pry. But you? You know the lanes. The whispers. The small truths traded in the shadows. And as long as you hold on to that, carefully, quietly, they can't truly touch you. You ladle soup into a rough clay bowl, settling by the fire. The night deepens outside, stars pricking the sky like cautious eyes. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. You'll be listening. The church bell tolls in the misty gray of morning, low and steady, pulling the village into reluctant motion. You pull your cloak tighter and step into the damp air, the sound reverberating in your chest. It's Sunday, which means one thing: Mass. A weekly ritual of faith, yes, but also of scrutiny. Inside the stone chapel, worn by time and weather, the villagers gather. Cold seeps through the ancient walls. The faint, acrid scent of incense hangs heavy, masking the earthier odors of livestock, unwashed wool, and damp soil that cling to the congregation. Wooden pews creak under the weight of bodies and unspoken judgments. You slide into your usual place near the back. Not so hidden as to draw attention, not so prominent as to seem immodest. It's a practiced positioning, a small, silent rebellion of your own. Around you, eyes flicker. The baker's wife whispers to her neighbor, likely about the miller's daughter, who's courting trouble with a visiting merchant. A few glances drift your way, quickly tucked behind lowered lids. Being unmarried, you exist outside the tidy, comforting boxes the church prefers. You're neither wife nor widow. You belong to no man's household. And while the priest may smile, his sermons often carry subtle barbs for the likes of you. Historians still argue whether the medieval church truly despised independent women or simply feared the disruption they represented. Either way, you feel the weight of expectation pressing in with every muttered prayer. Father Gilbert steps to the pulpit, voice rising through the cold space. The usual rhythm follows: psalms, scripture, stern reminders of sin and virtue. You know these words by heart, the promises of salvation, the threats of damnation. But beneath them, subtler lessons linger. Today, it's the parable of the prodigal son, a tale of return, repentance, belonging. But his eyes drift toward you as he speaks of the dangers of straying alone, of abandoning one's proper place. The meaning isn't lost on anyone. You school your expression into calm neutrality, gaze steady but unreadable. A single woman, with no visible male protector, unsettles this world of rigid hierarchies. The sermon ends. Hymns rise, a wavering, off-key chorus filling the stone arches. You mouth the words, mind elsewhere. As the congregation files out, clusters form by the chapel steps. Friendly chatter blends with cautious curiosity. The priest lingers near the door, offering blessings and measured scrutiny in equal measure. You pause when it's your turn. "Peace be with you," Father Gilbert intones, eyes searching. "And also with you," you reply smoothly. A flicker of something passes between you. Not accusation, yet. But watchfulness. He, like many, wonders how you keep your home, your small life, without the visible scaffolding of male authority. It unsettles the village narrative. Stepping into the sunlight, you rejoin the milling crowd. The married women gather, comparing bread recipes, illnesses, and the latest whispers. Men boast about livestock and harvests. Children dart between legs, faces flushed with cold. You catch sight of Agnes near the well. She stands alone, posture proud, ignoring the subtle distance others maintain. Widowhood grants her some leeway, but suspicion clings to independence like burrs to wool. You drift toward her. "He laid it on thick today," you murmur, falling in beside her. Agnes chuckles dryly. "The priest? I. Must be that time of year. The devil always walks more boldly when the crops grow thin." It's a joke, but only just. Superstition runs deeper here than faith. Every bad harvest, every stillbirth, every spoiled batch of ale, it needs a cause. Often, that cause wears the face of a woman alone. Historians still argue whether medieval people genuinely believed in witches hiding behind every hedge, or if fear simply provided convenient scapegoats. You suspect belief and convenience are hard to untangle. The two of you lean by the well as the villagers disperse. Agnes offers you an apple from her basket, small, misshapen, but sweet. "You've got eyes on you," she warns softly, biting into hers. Juice dribbles down her chin. "Not just the priest. Marjorie heard the reeve asking after your garden." Your garden, a small patch of herbs, vegetables, and the occasional medicinal plant. Useful. Necessary. But also, risky. "Let them look," you say, cool as the breeze curling through the village. Agnes snorts, amused by your bravado. "Careful. You know how fast, herbalist, turns into sorceress in these parts." You do. Too well. Later, back in your cottage, you kneel by the garden plot. Mint, sage, thyme, humble, practical. But nearby, tucked behind the hedgerow, grows rue and tansy. Useful for keeping pests at bay, and for other, quieter purposes. The church frowns upon such knowledge, yet every housewife knows it. For easing pain. For preventing complications. The village pretends not to notice, until someone needs it, or someone needs punishing. You run your fingers through the soil, rich and dark beneath your nails. Earth doesn't care for sermons or propriety. It yields to those who tend it, who understand its secrets. The sun dips low, casting the garden in golden haze. You stand, brushing dirt from your palms, gaze drifting toward the chapel's steeple silhouetted against the sky. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. Faith may rule their mouths, but fear governs their hearts. And knowledge, the quiet, steady kind you've cultivated, remains your sharpest defense. As evening settles, you light a small oil lamp, its glow soft against the rough-hewn walls. Outside, the village sleeps beneath its blanket of assumptions. But you? You tend your garden, your knowledge, your quiet defiance. The church may watch. The priest may warn. But your roots run deeper than their sermons. And in that, you find your peace. The market square thrums with the low hum of voices, clinking coins, and the creak of cartwheels over uneven cobblestones. You weave through the crowd, basket in hand, cloak drawn tight against the morning chill. The smell of fresh bread, tanned leather, and livestock hangs thick in the air. Market days are a curious beast. A place for trade, yes, but also for stories, for alliances, for the unfiltered pulse of the village laid bare. For a single woman, it's both opportunity and battlefield. You pass stalls stacked with winter apples, coarse woven cloth, and salt fish from the coast, their eyes glassy and accusing. The butcher sharpens his cleaver with theatrical menace. The baker's wife, Marjorie, eyes you with open curiosity, her smile thin. Your herbs still growing in this frost, she calls lightly. You smile, non-committal. They manage. It's not just idle chat. It's a test. A reminder that your small garden, your knowledge of plants, marks you as useful, and dangerous. Historians still argue whether the reputation of medieval herb women was earned by skill, or inflated by fear. You suspect both are true. People need remedies, but they distrust anyone, especially women, who wields quiet power outside sanctioned roles. Further along, Agnes haggles over wool, her silver-streaked hair escaping its braid. A merchant from the next town over displays glass beads beside rough pottery. His apprentice, a boy with crooked teeth, sneaks glances at you, wide-eyed. Travelers bring more than goods, they carry stories, news, unfamiliar accents that ripple through the local order like pebbles tossed in a pond. You pause by the fabric stall, fingers trailing over rough linen. The merchant, a stout woman with sharp eyes, recognizes you. Looking to make something pretty, she teases. You raise an eyebrow. Or something warm. She chuckles. Smart girl. A simple exchange. But layered beneath? The ongoing negotiation of your place here. Neither wholly accepted, nor outright rejected. Useful. Watched. Tolerated, for now. At the square's edge, Father Gilbert and the Reeve stand deep in conversation. Their eyes track the crowd, pausing on you just long enough to chill your spine. It's a familiar weight, the awareness that your independence is noted, measured, quietly disapproved. You slip into the crowd, purchasing dried beans, a wedge of hard cheese, a twist of waxed thread. Small necessities for your small, deliberate life. A commotion by the ale cart draws your attention. Two men, farmhands, argue loudly over coin. The crowd leans in, eager for distraction. Voices rise. Insults fly. But your gaze drifts to the outskirts, where the merchant's cart stands. The merchant himself, middle-aged, eyes sharp as flint, speaks softly with Agnes. His expression is guarded. Hers? Equally so. But you know that look. The quiet bartering of information, more valuable than wool or grain. You make your way over as the crowd's attention remains fixed on the argument. "Friend of yours?" you ask casually, as Agnes breaks away. She offers a half-smile. "Newcomer. Passing through. Might have news from the city." City news is rare here, filtered, often days or weeks old by the time it reaches your sleepy village. But valuable. Dangerous, even. The merchant eyes you with open curiosity. "You're the herb woman," he says, more statement than question. You incline your head. "I help where I can." "Useful skill," he observes, voice low. "Especially for those who know how to keep quiet." There it is. The unspoken understanding. The recognition of your position, not entirely within the village, not entirely outside it. A liminal space. Respected, resented, necessary. Historians still argue whether medieval market women held true influence beyond their stalls. But here, in this muddy square, you see the truth, knowledge, goods, and quiet alliances weave together as surely as wool on a loom. The merchant departs, his cart creaking away. Agnes watches him go, then turns to you. "Best you stay sharp," she murmurs. "Outsiders stir up more than trade." She's right. Change unsettles the delicate balance here. A new face. New stories. New suspicions. As the market winds down, you pass the chapel, its stones cold and unmoving. The Reeve lingers nearby, his gaze heavy as a millstone. "You've had visitors," he observes, voice smooth as curdled milk. "Market day," you reply evenly. "We all have." A pause. The faintest curl of his lip. "Don't forget where your loyalties lie." It's not a request. You smile, polite, detached. "I never do." The unspoken threat hangs between you as you retreat to your cottage. The basket bites into your arm, heavy with beans and bread, but it's the weight of scrutiny that presses hardest. Inside, you unpack your purchases, movements methodical. The cheese goes in the pantry. The beans in a cloth sack. But your mind spins. The merchant. The news. The Reeves' quiet menace. The market square may close at dusk, but its ripples last far longer. Outside, the sun dips behind gray clouds. Smoke rises from chimneys. The village exhales into evening, unaware, or perhaps willfully blind, to the subtle undercurrents that shape its fate. You sit by your hearth, sharpening your small, quiet tools of survival. Because in this world, a single woman learns quickly, trade isn't just goods. It's knowledge. It's leverage. It's the difference between tolerated and targeted. And you? You intend to stay firmly on the safer side of that line. The sky is still ink dark when you rise, the faintest hint of dawn just a pale smear beyond the window. The village still sleeps, chimneys cold, doors barred, but your day starts earlier than most. It has to. You pad across the uneven floor of your cottage, the rushes crackling softly underfoot. The fire from last night has died to faint embers. You coax it back to life with practiced ease, feeding it dry kindling until the room fills with the gentle glow of flame. Its warmth stretches feebly toward the corners, but it's enough for now. The life of a single woman here is made up of small, constant tasks, unseen by most, but essential. You tend them like threads in a tapestry, knowing that letting one fray could unravel everything. First, the water. You carry your bucket to the well, shoulders hunched against the chill. The village square is eerily quiet at this hour. The chapel's silhouette looms, its empty windows watching like hollow eyes. Drawing water takes strength, but you've long since grown used to the strain in your arms, the rope's rough bite in your palms. You haul the bucket home, careful not to spill. Then, the hearth. Porridge on the boil. A modest breakfast, enough to keep you steady. Outside, roosters begin their indignant crowing, and the village slowly stirs awake. Your garden waits. Frost rims the edges of the small plot, glistening like spun glass. You inspect the herbs, noting what's withered, what still clings to life. Mint, sturdy and defiant. Rue, bitter and hardy. A few sad carrots, their green tops drooping like tired flags. It's not much, but it sustains you. Historians still argue whether single women in medieval villages had gardens out of necessity or quiet defiance. You suspect it's both. A way to survive, and a way to remind the world you don't vanish simply because no man claims your name. After tending the plants, you sweep the floor, mend a fraying hem on your cloak, check the woodpile. Every task has its rhythm, a quiet certainty. You've built this life thread by thread, and though it may seem fragile to outsiders, it's yours. By mid-morning, the village pulses with life. The smith's hammer rings in steady beats. Children chase one another, their laughter high and wild. The baker's wife, Marjorie again, offers loaves, her eyes sliding to you with the same mix of suspicion and reluctant respect as always. Today brings a different task. The widow, old Matilda, has fallen ill. You're not the village healer, that would be ambitious, dangerous even, but your knowledge of herbs makes you the next best thing. And when sickness comes, even the wary set aside their doubts. You pack a small bundle, dried chamomile, willow bark, a pinch of sage. Simple remedies. Nothing to draw the church's eye. Matilda's cottage leans against the forest's edge, its roof sagging like an old man's shoulders. You knock softly, entering when there's no reply. The air inside is sour with illness. Matilda lies bundled beneath threadbare blankets, her face pale, breath shallow. You set to work quietly. Boiling water over her hearth. Mixing herbs into a weak tea. Damp cloths to cool her brow. As you work, her eyes flutter open, clouded but aware. Thought, they'd send the priest, she rasps. You smile faintly. The priest can pray. I can make tea. It's not a joke, exactly, but her lips twitch in a ghost of amusement. Even here, at the edge of sickness and suspicion, humor survives. Historians still argue whether such women, herb wives, midwives, quiet healers, were true threats to church authority or simply necessary evils. You know better. They were both. And they still are. Matilda dozes as you tend her, the cottage settling into quiet. Outside, birds call faintly, their song thin against the looming forest. You glance toward the trees. The woods have their own reputation, dark, untamed, whispering of things beyond the village's tidy fears. Witches. Outlaws. Spirits. Whether those tales hold truth? Well, that depends who you ask. You've walked those woods often enough to know, danger lives there, but so does freedom. The sun dips lower by the time you return home, the sky bruised with evening light. You pass the chapel, its door ajar. Inside, Father Gilbert arranges candles, his expression unreadable. His gaze lifts briefly to meet yours. Neither of you speaks. You continue on, the unspoken boundary between you intact, for now. In your cottage, you light your own candle. The flame flickers, casting long shadows against the walls. You unbundle your herbs, fingers tracing their familiar shapes. It's not much, this life. Modest, often lonely, stitched together with caution and quiet resistance. But it's yours. And that, in this world, is a victory worth claiming. Outside, the village settles into sleep. Doors bar. Fires crackle low. But you remain, tending your space, your skills, your small rebellions. Because survival isn't loud. It's careful. It's constant. It's every quiet choice that lets you remain unseen, but never powerless. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, it all begins again. The rooster's crow slices through the quiet before dawn, but you're already awake, watching the gray light creep across your ceiling. Sleep never comes easy when the air hums with tension, and lately, the village feels like a taut string, one gust of wind away from snapping. You stretch stiff limbs and slip out of bed, feet finding cool earth floor. Another day, another careful step through the dance of survival. Today, the forest calls. Not for wood or berries this time, but for something quieter, something only a few like you dare to seek. The villagers whisper of witches hiding among the trees, brewing mischief in mossy clearings. But you know the forest holds other secrets too, herbs that soothe childbirth, fungi that ease fevers, roots that keep the hungry months from turning deadly. Historians still argue whether medieval women truly ventured into the woods alone for such things, or whether that's just the stuff of cautionary tales. You smile to yourself as you fasten your cloak. Some tales are built from truth. The village yawns awake behind you as you slip past crooked fences and frost-stiffened fields. Crows stir overhead, their caws sharp against the quiet. The chapel spire fades from view, replaced by the tangled, whispering arms of the forest. It's colder beneath the trees. Damp earth swells beneath fallen leaves. Twigs crack underfoot. You move with practiced care, eyes scanning for familiar shapes, pale lichen, clusters of blue-black berries, the wide, flat leaves of burdock. Each plant tucked away like a secret. Each one with a use. The forest floor is soft, muffling your footsteps. A rabbit bolts across your path, vanishing into a bramble. You pause, listening. The woods have their own rhythm. It's not safe, exactly, but neither is the village. Here, at least, the rules are clear: the strong survive, the quiet thrive, and those who understand the land walk with fewer fears. You spot what you came for, a patch of foxglove, its purple bells heavy with morning dew. Dangerous, yes. But useful. In small doses, the leaves steady a racing heart. In careless hands, they stop it entirely. You gather the leaves with care, wrapping them in linen. The villagers might not understand the difference, but you do. Knowledge, after all, is your sharpest tool, and your greatest shield. A rustle to your right snaps your attention. You straighten, muscles taut, heart thudding. But it's only Agnes. She emerges from the shadows like part of the forest herself, gray cloak blending with the undergrowth. Her sharp eyes flick to your bundle, then back to your face. Risky, that, she remarks, nodding at the foxglove. Riskier not to have it, you reply, voice low. She snorts softly, falling into step beside you. The two of you pick through the woods in companionable silence, the occasional snap of a twig or whisper of wind your only audience. Agnes, for all her silver-streaked hair, walks the forest with the ease of someone half her age. Another single woman. Another quiet survivor. She's taught you much, not with words, but with wary glances and lessons tucked between cautious gestures. Market's buzzing, she says finally. Strangers still about. You nod. The merchant. His arrival may seem like nothing to some, but you know how small things stir old fears. Outsiders mean questions. Questions mean attention. And attention, for women like you, rarely ends well. Reeves sniffing about too, Agnes adds, plucking a sprig of wild thyme. Looking for something. Or someone. You exchange a glance. No need to say more. The balance is shifting. You feel it in the villagers' eyes, their hushed words, the tightening net of suspicion. Historians still argue whether communities like yours truly turned on their own so easily, or whether it was fear, famine, and church sermons that fanned the flames. But standing here, beneath the watching trees, you don't need scholars to tell you how quickly goodwill sours. The forest gives, but it also watches. It remembers the steps of those who walk carefully, and those who don't. You finish gathering what you need: nettles for soup, willow bark for fevers, the foxglove wrapped tight. Agnes vanishes down a side path, her parting words floating back like smoke, careful. Winds changing. By the time you return to the village, the sun is clawing its way over the horizon, staining the sky pink and gold. Smoke rises from chimneys. The chapel bell tolls, a slow, heavy sound that never feels entirely welcoming. Father Gilbert lingers near the well, eyes narrowing as you pass. You offer a polite nod. His gaze lingers on your bundle, his jaw tightening. You keep walking. The day unfolds like every other: chores, wary glances, the quiet stitching together of survival. But beneath the surface, the tension hums louder. At twilight, you sit by your hearth, foxgloves safely stored, herbs drying by the fire. The village quiets. The sky deepens to velvet. You sip weak tea and wonder how long before the careful web you walk begins to fray. Because single women like you? You survive through caution, through knowledge, through the quiet forest paths others fear to tread. But when the wind shifts, even the quiet must decide whether to run, or stand their ground. The morning brings an edge of unease you can't quite shake, like the village itself is holding its breath. You rise, muscles stiff, and stoke the hearth, the fire crackling to life with reluctant warmth. Outside, mist curls low over the thatched rooftops, blurring the familiar edges of home. The market set up early today, stalls lining the crooked main road, carts creaking under sacks of grain, baskets of eggs, and bundles of wool. But the usual chatter feels subdued, the villagers' eyes darting like startled birds. The merchant is still here. You spot his tent near the church square, bright fabric faded from travel but still garishly out of place among the wattle and daub cottages. He's tall, with a fox's grin and eyes that never seem to rest. Trinkets and fabrics hang from his stall, silks, beads, bits of glass that catch the light like treasure. And beside him? The reeve. The reeve is a different sort of threat. He isn't loud or brash, just steady, patient, the way a spider waits on its web. His job is simple: collect taxes, enforce order, keep the church's favor. But single women like you? You're an itch beneath his skin. Hard to control, harder to understand. You linger near the baker's stall, pretending to examine loaves as their conversation drifts over the crowd. She's been seen in the woods, herbs, dangerous talk. You don't need names to understand. Historians still argue whether medieval officials truly hounded women like you from suspicion alone, or whether jealousy, land disputes, and quiet grudges played their part. Standing here, you suspect it was always a little of both. Marjorie catches your eye, offering a loaf. Her gaze softens, pity, maybe. Or fear. You take the bread, murmuring thanks, and slip away. Your cottage feels smaller today. The walls lean in, the shadows heavy. You busy your hands, sorting herbs, grinding dried leaves, patching a hole in your cloak, but the weight never lifts. By midday, Agnes appears at your door, her mouth tight. Reeves sniffing close, she warns. Better tidy your shelves. Less to explain. You nod. Together, you sweep through the small space, tucking the more questionable herbs deep beneath the floorboards, bundling the foxglove tight. It's a quiet, rehearsed ritual. Not the first time. Won't be the last. As the sun lowers, casting the village in honeyed light, the knock comes. 3 firm raps. Not frantic. Not friendly. You open the door to the reeve, flanked by Father Gilbert, their expressions carved from the same stone. We've had concerns, the reeve begins, voice smooth as pond water. Best to clear them. You nod once, stepping aside. The inspection is slow, methodical. They peer at your drying herbs, your modest bundles of wool, your neat rows of earthen jars. Foxglove, Father Gilbert remarks, lifting a sprig from your shelf. For hearts, you reply evenly. Matilda's been ill. The reeve grunts, unconvinced. They find nothing damning. You're careful, always careful. Still, their eyes linger longer than they should, the reeves on your unbound hair, Father Gilbert's on the worn copy of the Psalms tucked near your bed. Historians still argue whether women like you truly practiced forbidden arts, or whether churchmen saw heresy where independence bloomed. You know the truth lives somewhere in the quiet places they fear to tread. At last, they leave. Not satisfied, but empty-handed. You exhale slowly, shoulders easing as the door clicks shut. Agnes appears again as dusk falls, a flask of weak ale in her hand. Could have been worse, she offers, settling by your hearth. They'll be back, you reply, watching the flames dance. Always are. The night deepens. You share the ale, quiet words weaving between sips. Agnes talks of her youth, a distant village, a boy with laughing eyes, a life traded for survival. You offer fragments of your own, your mother's warnings, your sister's quick temper, the way the forest never judges. Outside, the village quiets, doors barred, shutters drawn. But beneath the stillness, you feel it, the low hum of suspicion, coiled tight as a snare. You think of the merchant's fox grin, the reeve's patient gaze, the priest's thinly veiled contempt. Their world doesn't have space for women like you. It never did. But you've carved space all the same. Tomorrow brings more of the same, chores, wary glances, the endless stitching together of caution and quiet defiance. But for now, the fire's glow softens the edges of fear. For now, you have the comfort of knowing your place, fragile though it may be, still holds. And when the reeve comes knocking again, because he will, you'll be ready. Because single women like you don't survive by accident. You survive by understanding the rules, and bending them until they almost break. The days lengthen, the frost loosening its grip on the village, but with spring's thaw comes no relief from the wary eyes and whispered words. The merchant finally packs his bright tent and rolls his cart away, but his brief stay leaves behind a residue of curiosity and unease. The reeve's patrols have grown more frequent. The priest's sermons more pointed. Those who walk alone, who meddle with nature's secrets, beware the wolves among us. You hear it all, though you rarely step foot in the chapel now. Even from your cottage, the echo of Father Gilbert's voice weaves through the thatched roofs like smoke. Historians still argue whether the Church's suspicion of women like you was rooted in scripture or simply fear. But watching the way even Marjorie avoids your eyes now, you know fear needs no divine permission. Still, life continues. It must. The villagers' needs don't stop simply because their tongues sharpen. Matilda's fever returns, a child burns with rash and chills. They come to you under cover of dusk, hesitant, desperate. You answer the knock, mix your teas, share your herbs. You're not a healer, officially. But the village knows. And tonight, your quiet skill is needed again. It's Edith, the miller's wife, panting at your door, eyes wide. It started, the babe, it's wrong, I know it. Childbirth. That great, brutal gamble that still terrifies even the most devout. The priest offers prayers. The village women offer experience. You offer something else, steady hands, bitter herbs, knowledge whispered from mother to daughter long before the reeve's laws mattered. You follow Edith through the dark village, the mill looming silent as a beast by the water. Inside, candlelight flickers frantic across worried faces. The room smells of sweat, fear, and something sharper, blood. The women part for you. No words needed. You kneel by Edith, her face slick with pain, her belly taut as a drum. The babe is stubborn. Turned wrong. Dangerous. The herbs help, raspberry leaves for strength, motherwort for the trembling. You coax, guide, soothe. The hours stretch long and taut. Historians still argue whether midwives of your time were revered or feared. Watching the way these women's eyes flick between you and the chapel, you know it's both. Finally, the babe comes, small, blue-tinged, silent. Your heart stutters. But you're prepared. You clear its airway, rub tiny limbs, murmur quiet urgings. A wail splits the air, thin and defiant. Relief floods the room. Edith sobs, exhausted but alive. The women murmur thanks. But beneath their gratitude lingers the same wary distance, the unspoken knowledge that your success feels a little too close to something unnatural for their comfort. You leave before the reeve or priest arrives to bless, or question, the child. The path home is cold, moonlight gleaming across rooftops like thin ice. At your door, Agnes waits. Heard, she says simply. You nod, weariness bone deep. Won't be long now, she adds. You know what she means. Success invites suspicion. You've tread this line for years, but the noose tightens. Back inside, you wash your hands. The herbs, the teas, they steady your heart, but they don't ease the growing weight. You think of the old tales, the wise women turned scapegoat, the widows accused of curses, the girls disappeared into silence. Historians still argue whether those stories reflect reality or superstition. But living here, you've learned, when fear blooms, facts wilt. And in a village bound tight by faith and famine, survival for a single woman is never just about food or firewood. It's about staying useful enough to be tolerated, yet invisible enough to be ignored. But tonight, after Edith's child, your usefulness has grown. And with it, the attention. The fire crackles softly as you settle by the hearth, the herb bundles casting faint shadows across the walls. Tomorrow, they'll talk. Tomorrow, the reeve will knock again, perhaps with words. Perhaps with accusations. But tonight? Tonight, the child lives. Edith lives. And for one more day, so do you. Because single women like you? You walk a path lined with suspicion and quiet power. And though it narrows with each step, you've never been one to falter easily. The village hums with rumors by dawn. You feel it before you even unlatch your door, the prickle of eyes, the pause in passing conversations, the sidelong glances that follow you like shadows. It's always like this after a birth, especially when the child survives against the odds. Especially when you had anything to do with it. The chapel bell tolls, low and steady, as you make your way down the crooked lane. The market is quiet today, but the air buzzes with tension as sharp as nettles. You keep your head down, fingers brushing the herb pouch at your waist, a small comfort beneath your cloak. Agnes waits near the well, her posture casual, eyes sharp. They'll come, she says under her breath. Sooner now. You nod. The signs are as plain as bread and broth. Historians still argue whether accusations of witchcraft or heresy were truly sparked by things like a difficult birth turned lucky, or whether they were rooted in land disputes, old grudges, or the tangled web of village politics. But standing here, watching neighbors clutch their children tighter as you pass, it's hard to deny the patterns. It starts with whispers. The midwife's herbs were too effective. The babe should have died. Maybe it's marked now, cursed. Then comes the subtle isolation. Fewer greetings. Bread no longer left at your door. Old friends turning away. Finally, the reeve arrives. You don't have to wait long. By midday, the sharp rap of knuckles on wood echoes through your small cottage. You open the door, unsurprised to see the reeve's broad frame filling the doorway. His expression is carved from suspicion and something harder to name, resentment, perhaps, or quiet calculation. Behind him, Father Gilbert stands, face pinched in holy disapproval. "Concerns," the reeve says simply, stepping inside. Your eyes flick to the shelf where your herbs sit, neatly bundled, where the psalter rests beside dried lavender. Father Gilbert moves to inspect the room, fingers grazing your belongings with distaste. "It's come to our attention," the reeve continues, "that your practices may be stirring unrest." You bite back a retort. "Anger is a luxury you can't afford." "I help when asked," you say evenly. "That's all." Some say otherwise. His gaze sharpens. They say you meddle. That your herbs are unnatural. "Foxglove and nettles are hardly witchcraft," you reply, forcing a small, wry smile. "Unless the church has declared them sinful overnight." The reeve's lips twitch, not quite amusement, not quite warning. Father Gilbert interjects, voice low and smooth as oil. "It's not just plants, girl. It's the influence. The independence." The word lands heavy in the room. Independence. A woman alone. No husband. No master. No male tether to explain your place. Historians still argue whether that was ever enough to draw suspicion in earnest, or whether we overstate it now. But you've lived it. You know better. The reeve's voice cuts through your thoughts. "We'll be watching closely." They leave without arrest, without formal accusation. But their absence is no relief. It's a warning, plain as day. You move through the rest of the day like a wraith, silent, unnoticed, practicing the quiet art of survival. By evening, Agnes returns, her face grim. "They're gathering the council," she says softly. "Won't be long." The council. A neat word for a messy thing, a circle of village elders, ready to pass judgment. No courtroom. No defense. Just whispers given weight and fear dressed as righteousness. You sit by the hearth that night, the small space thick with herbs and memory. You think of your mother, her steady hands teaching you to identify feverfew, to steep willow bark for aches, to slip quietly through life's narrow cracks. You think of the forest, the foxglove, the watchful trees, the patient shadows. And you wonder how long until they come not with questions, but with fire and rope. The villagers may not be cruel by nature. But fear is louder than kindness. And fear, once seated, grows fast. Still, you're not without options. The forest remains. A place of quiet refuge. Of uncertainty, yes, but also of freedom. You trace the worn edge of your psalter, the Latin letters faded but steady beneath your fingers. A symbol of your careful balance, the church's teachings beside the old knowledge hidden in the folds of leaves and roots. Tomorrow, you'll decide. Stay, and risk the firestorm brewing. Or run, and trade suspicion for solitude. Because for women like you, there are no safe choices. Only careful ones. And tonight, with the fire crackling low and the village's suspicion pressing at your door like winter wind, you begin to weigh them all. The morning arrives quiet, but not with peace, more like the breathless stillness before a storm breaks. You rise, listening to the muted sounds of the village waking beyond your door. Chickens cluck. A cart rumbles past. Somewhere, a dog barks. Ordinary, forgettable sounds, but today, they feel like a funeral bell wrapped in wool. The council meets at midday. You have until then to decide. You sip weak tea, fingers steady despite the turmoil curling in your stomach. On the table lies your small collection, herbs tied in neat bundles, your psalter worn from use, a bone-handled knife for cutting roots, or fending off trouble, if it comes to that. Your gaze drifts to the forest beyond the village. It's not a promise of safety. You know that. The woods hold their own dangers, bandits, wolves, the sharp bite of hunger. But they also hold something rarer, a place the reeve, the priest, the villagers can't reach. Historians still argue whether women truly fled to the forests, carving out hidden lives beyond the laws and suspicions of the towns. Some claim it's more myth than fact, romanticized by poets and modern thinkers. But you know the truth doesn't always make it onto parchment. You've heard whispers, even now, tales of women living beyond the edges, crafting lives from moss and shadow, forgotten but free. It's tempting. But so is staying. Your skills are needed here. The villagers may fear you, but they rely on you too, when the fever spikes, when the crops fail, when childbirth turns dangerous. If you run, you abandon them to ignorance and superstition. If you stay, well, you've seen how that ends. Agnes arrives, her cloak drawn tight against the spring chill. Decided? She asks softly. You shake your head. Not yet. Together, you walk the lane, past the leaning cottages, the weathered fences, the muddy paths tangled with fresh green shoots. Life pushes up from the earth stubborn as ever, indifferent to human fears. At the square, the council begins to gather. Men mostly. The reeve. Father Gilbert. A few of the wealthier villagers, those with land, coin, or enough pride to fuel their opinions. The women stand back, watching. Faces familiar, wary, uncertain. Marjorie. Matilda. Even Edith, pale but alive, cradling her newborn in shaking arms. Your presence hushes the crowd like a blanket dropped over smoldering coals. The reeve clears his throat. Concerns have been raised, he begins, voice smooth, practiced. About the influence certain individuals hold. No names. Not yet. But the villagers' eyes flick to you all the same. Herbs, superstitions, talk of unnatural remedies, Father Gilbert adds, his gaze heavy with judgment. Such things breed unrest. A few villagers murmur agreement. Others glance away. You stand, quiet, letting their words coil around you like brambles. They can't accuse you outright, no proof, no burned crops or dead cattle. Just fear. Just a woman who lives alone, who knows too much. Historians still argue whether formal trials for women like you were as widespread in these small villages as legend suggests. But the court of public opinion? That's always been real. And dangerous. The reeve continues, fishing for consensus, for permission. You feel it, this is your moment. Your choice. Run now, disappear into the forest, and let the fear fade without a target. Or stay. Speak. Claim your place. Your heart pounds steady as a drum. You draw a breath, the air sharp with wood smoke and nerves. I've done nothing unnatural, you say, voice calm but carrying. I've tended wounds. Helped the sick. Caught babies before they slipped into the grave. A few heads nod, hesitant, unsure. Is that so wicked, you continue, meeting the reeve's eyes? Or is it simply easier to fear what you don't understand? The silence stretches. Historians still argue whether defiance ever protected women like you, or only sharpened the axe. But sometimes, silence is deadlier. You hold their gaze. The reeves. Father Gilbert's. The villagers. And for the first time, you see doubt in their eyes. Not trust, not yet. But uncertainty. Enough, perhaps, to survive. The council mutters among themselves. No formal verdict. No torches or ropes today. The crowd disperses, tension fraying like old thread. Agnes exhales beside you, faint relief in her posture. Careful, she murmurs. You've bought time. Not safety. You nod, understanding settling into your bones. You won today. But the ground beneath your feet remains fragile. The forest waits. Always an option. But so does quiet resistance. You walk home as twilight creeps across the village, casting the cottages and fields in soft, forgiving hues. The danger isn't gone. It never is. But for now, your roots remain. The secret life of a single medieval woman isn't marked by grand defiance or fiery rebellion. It's stitched together from small victories. Cunning. Caution. A steady hand on a boiling pot, an herb ground into tea, a whispered truth passed behind shuttered windows. Tonight, you light the hearth. You steep the herbs. You watch the village settle into uneasy rest. And you survive. Just as countless women before you have done, in shadows, in silence, and sometimes, with a sly smile and a stubborn heartbeat that refuses to fade. The fire crackles low, casting the cottage in gentle amber light. Outside, the night hums with distant owls and the rustling of wind through trees, a soft lullaby woven from shadows and quiet earth. You ease into your chair, muscles unwinding, the heavy cloak of uncertainty settling, but not suffocating. The villagers sleep now, their fears and whispers tucked behind locked doors and drawn shutters. Even the reeve retreats to his hearth, Father Gilbert to his prayers, the council's mutterings swallowed by the dark. The forest looms beyond, silent and watchful, its secrets folded deep in the undergrowth. But for tonight, you stay. The small rituals soothe, the familiar scent of lavender and sage drifting from your shelves, the worn pages of your psalter beneath gentle fingers, the steady crackle of flames eating away the last tension of the day. You've learned this rhythm well, the delicate balance of visibility and silence, usefulness and caution. A quiet existence, perhaps. But yours. The world outside may never fully welcome you. But here, within these walls, among the herbs and embers, your life is your own. So close your eyes now, let your breathing slow. The night is long, but soft. And tomorrow, like every day before, you will rise. You will endure. You will be exactly what they fear, and exactly what they need. Sleep well, my friend.